Hello, my name is Nik Ranger. This is SEO in 2025 Additional Insights.
Nick, what's your additional insight for SEO in 2025?
Hello, everyone. My additional insight is why brand representation and interpretability matter in the era of large language models. That is what we're wanting to think about and start thinking beyond search engines. So start thinking about how your brand is represented inside a large language model like ChatGPT, like Gemini, and how you can understand the decisions those models make.
Wonderful. Okay, I want to dive into one of those words that you mentioned there. Well, was it interpretability? Is that the word that you're meaning? Or saying, rather?
Yes, so model interpretability is about making machine learning models understandable to humans, being able to explain why a model made a certain decision or predictions. So it's like asking the model, like, hey, what made you say that? It's crucial when you're wanting to build trust in the model's outputs, understand if your model is biased or broken, or making key decisions based on the model's recommendations to be able to improve the model or to be able to debug that. So this is really the basis around AI rank. For those of you reading or hearing or watching right now, you may have seen Dan Petrovich. He has built AI rank, and this is a very useful tool that he uses model interpretability to essentially be able to look at the brand to entity, entity to brand representation, to be able to see how your brand is being perceived and what it understands about you. The whole concept behind this is so that we can be able to essentially reverse engineer this, to be able to do experiments with this, to look at the way that words are being sequenced and look at the most likelihood of association with certain keywords. So essentially, we're wanting to optimize this for the LLM bots. And that's really the core thing that I think is really, really fascinating and interesting in the way that we're looking at this in 2025. It is a very different shift, I think, in the way that we've traditionally looked at SEO. But I see this as important for everybody. I see this as because LLMs, large language models, they are rapidly changing the search landscape. They are powering conversational search. They are powering AI assistants. They influence traditional search results through features like AI overviews. And I think it's these things become a lot more prevalent. How you are perceived and represented within these models can directly impact the visibility and hopefully the end user to be able to make decisions, to be able to perceive you in a light that is most favorable to you. And particularly when it comes to really competitive industries, like when you're very well known, really wanting to make sure that you're being represented correctly by these LLMs, I think is really, really a burgeoning, opening, new thing that we can really think about moving into the future of SEO.
So what are the key ways that are different about how we optimize for LLMs versus how we optimize for more conventional search engines like Google?
Well, I think the thing to keep in mind is that how the content is on the page and how it is there and is visible is really by the association of how you're seen. So to be able to answer your question, I'm going to maybe just take you through a little bit of how we are going to do this assessment. And I think a lot of people, from when I talk about how we're doing this and what specific things that we do to be able to take this information and do something practical with this, I think will really show the differences. So with AI rank, and this is free, by the way. This is free for anyone to go in and use. We're not paywalling this or anything like that. And it's looking at predominantly ChatGPT. If you're a client with us, we also include this with Gemini. That's a different matter. But we analyze how the brand is currently being represented within ChatGPT, for instance. So we use targeted prompts to be able to understand the entities and brands associated. So we start with how is your brand associated with this particular entity, say if it's a product or a service and things like that. And we sort of flip the script. Then we say how is this entity associated to what brands do you see as being related to that? So now you can be able to have 2 columns of different prompt outputs, and then it will tell you things about what it understands, whether you're associated with your industry, the products, the services, You can be able to identify any inaccuracies, any potential negative associations, or even just gaps in the model's understanding. So that's where we start, just to kind of get a base look. Then we do bidirectional probing. So bidirectional means like prompting the strategy to gain a comprehensive view of brand association. So to say like I said, like list brands associated with the industry or the product, and like list your brands with the products, and then that reveals how the model perceives your brands to your competitive landscape. So say, for instance, one of the things that Dan talked about is custom cycling jerseys. And this will spit out like a load of different brands. And we really want like our brands to be part of that association. And if it's not, then that's, giving us some ideas as to what the LLM has within its pre-training data to say like what it is associated with. So like when we have all this, then we're like, okay, we may have some content and maybe some semantic understanding of this, and we wanted to maybe do something with this. So do some optimization. So we're looking at the site, the content on the site, and even like the structured data that is like marking up and doing all these additional associations. We really want to be able to align this with the desired brand representation. I think like with wanting to do that, it leverages the insights gained from what we can be able to see from this bidirectional probing, like brand entity brand, right? And we want to have like better associations. So a lot of the time it has predictive measuring. So when we're looking at this, we will have like a sentence and we will say, okay, based on what this sentence says, what is the most likely word that will precede this? And when we're testing this, we can be able to see if we change any one of these words, it will spit out new and different word associations. So within our tool, we test out different sentence structures. We test out, and this is very, very granular. We can, even with changing like things like with or to or any one of these other modifiers within this, the model is giving us better likelihood of association within just that sentence. Like when we're wanting to look at the way that things are written and we're wanting to look at the title tag, we're wanting to look at the heading tag, the description, even in the above fold, like, key bits of text that is found on the page. We're wanting to really refine that content to be better aligned with sentences that have better statistical likelihood of being showing the words that we want essentially the LLM to pick up and be able to associate for our brand. Now, this is very granular in the way that I've explained this, but when we're looking at this in its entirety, we can be able to model this and be able to identify very quickly whether there are content gaps, whether there are good associations, bad associations with the relevant entities, and to be able to have like more of a comprehensive look at about how the brand is hopefully readily available for these large language models to be able to learn from. And then to be able to reverse engineer this to be able to trigger that brand as the answer for this. So we're really, really hoping to influence this on on-page content and maybe even off-page content with the way that we're doing like our PR, we're doing our outreach, and we're really wanting to have some influence to be able to see whether this is changing the way that it's associating this within the context for an LLM. So that's why I'm sort of saying we're really wanting to influence the way that we're writing to really just have better association with this. From explaining this this long winded thing, that's what I'm trying to say here is I don't think that this is anything like we have experienced in traditional SEO because now it's looking so particularly at the sequencing of words. And every single word, when we are breaking this down, we have like Google BERT, for instance, we have bidirectional encoder representation of transformers. We are looking at the way that they look in its entirety. So this is incredibly different. And if you think about it, you think about passage indexing, you think about featured snippets that get pulled out and being represented. Even within that bit of text, we're being so hyper-specific about the way that things are written, because we are really wanting to have the sequence of words that will have the better statistical likelihood of having better associations and better representations to be able to cue words within its model for when it's actually going to pull that in. To answer the question of how it's different, well, that's incredibly different, to the way that we've traditionally done things.
Okay, wow. Okay, so there's so many follow-up questions that I could ask in relation to that. So let's try and stick it to two. So firstly, I'll probably come to in a second, actually, what we do about improving our content, because obviously you're saying that any word can significantly impact the way that an LLM perhaps perceives what that content is about and whether or not it's actually wanting to feature that piece of content in its own results. So how do we improve our content? Do we simply actually ask LLMs for suggestions on how to improve our content? But firstly, in relation to the LLM model, because you focused on ChatGPT and Gemini to begin with, can we use those as proxies for other LLMs, i.e. other LLMs that maybe operate slightly differently? Is it likely that they're going to be perceiving our brands in the same way? Do we just have to optimize for one LLM?
Well, without doing testing, I cannot actually honestly say. From the way that I've seen this, we're wanting to really just test ones that are the most popular and in the cultural zeitgeist at the moment that is being used. Obviously, we'll pay attention closely to Gemini, as that is what they're using to be able to impact Google search. I think maybe to help maybe explain this, I think I need to maybe just step back and maybe explain the difference between grounded and ungrounded within the context of a large language model, and to refer to whether the model's external responses are based on that external factual information or whether it's on its internal knowledge. So just to explain this, ungrounded solely relies on the LLM's training data. So what is the amount of data that ChatGPT or Gemini have used to be able to build its own world knowledge within that, right? Now, this in itself can be prone to hallucinations, getting incorrect or nonsensical information that sounds plausible but isn't factually inaccurate. It's useful for creating tasks, brainstorming, and is really, really good for sometimes emulating or doing a mimicry of someone in the way that they may speak or in the way that they might construct sentences and things like that. So, it can be very useful in that way. When talking about grounded as a difference to this is what is the most interesting and what we have spent quite a lot of literal time and money, because we've used Google API to be able to have a good list of all these grounding queries. We've built, and I think this is the cool point of difference with the way that we've, I say we, I mean Dan Petrovich is the real genius in all of this, wanting to be able to have a prediction as to whether a query will be grounded or ungrounded. And why I say grounded is so fascinating, grounded means it is connected to and retrieves information from search results, live search results. So it will have the pre-trained data, and then it will have the live search results that it will pull in from Google's index, and it will use RAG, retrieval augmented generation, to be able to pull these two external sources and to be able to then have more factually accurate and more up-to-date responses. So this is incredibly useful for requiring those real-world information, answering questions, summarizing news articles, for instance, and providing maybe even product recommendations that it needs to check whether they're available or whether they have certain key things about them. Grounded results also are less prone to hallucinations, although the accuracy can still depend on the quality of those external resources. This is sort of why when people talk about AI-generated results, that still good SEO is applied. It is still applicable in the sense for the grounded result, because it will use Google's index as a way to be able to pull this in and to be able to amalgamate that with its pre-trained data and be able to give something a little bit more helpful within that prompt and within that result. So I think with that in mind, this is very, very different in the way that we're wanting to do this, because those differences are, I think, really crucial for us, first for several reasons. We can be able to influence the responses. by doing tests. So if we're trying to optimize the content for the grounded LLM results, so which are increasingly influencing search results, we need to really focus on ensuring that the content is that we're putting out there, that we're having index is not just accurate, but also has really good information, is readily available. It's looking at data accessibility and making sure that that is there. So optimizing web content, structuring those data, or even like building knowledge graphs and really making sure that that is well optimized. And, that's the traditional SEO things that we all know and understand. But with optimizing for the LLM, this is where we can really have like that new paradigm shift. We can be able to like tweak the on-page content. We can be able to test this. And with the measuring of this over time, we can be able to see whether or not this is getting picked up and associated in the way that we are wanting to tool and have influence or not. And I think that this is a very different way of approaching this and working with this. And as we're starting to roll out with clients and doing like some initial tests, our aim of the game is first to explain this, but also be very hyper specific with, okay, like when we're wanting to pull this in, when we're wanting to look at key real estate that is being looked at for search interpretability, we're wanting to maybe tweak and do experiments with essentially like reverse engineering the prompt in the way that it will be understood. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. But how do we really, in terms of a takeaway, how do we go about improving our content if we find out that we're not appearing, the entity isn't as optimized as we would wish to appear in various search results? We can, using the tool that you suggested, actually determine why that might be. What is the process that you recommend to enhance the content so it's more likely to appear in future results?
I've got a great example of this, one that we're working quite literally right now with a client of ours who, the custom cycling jersey, that's like their primary product that they really want to focus on. For us, like it was fascinating to see the way that we were getting the brand entity results associated with their main entity and their brand. It was picking up that Aware, which is the client, were more associated with soccer and with Germany, because they're a German company, and it was like, oh, this is fascinating. So me as a technical SEO looks at their site, and I can see in the way that the site has been set up with their HTML, that soccer is really above there as like one of the first bits of internal links across like their template of pages. Like that's literally the first block of information that they can be able to go through and see. So and then secondary, then there's a custom cycling, but we wanted it to be more of the first. So that was interesting. The second thing that I thought was really interesting was that it was associating with a German company. Now, when it's going through and it's crawling this, and we can be able to verify this with log file data in the way that we're seeing the bots go through and crawl this, they're picking up a lot of their product category pages, their PLP pages, and they're finding that on these main pages, the first thing that they see as part of like the on-page content is that, hey, we're a German company. It's like, oh, okay, so they've seen the menu, like the H1, like, some links off to the product pages. But the first real big piece of content that they're seeing is, this grid. And the first thing that says there is, hey, we're a German company. And lo and behold, and we've run this test like multiple times over the course of many, many months, there's still a strong association with the German company. It's not a bad association. I mean, it's truthful, it's accurate, but is it the one that we're wanting to have as the predominant thing when you're wanting to say, like, who is Aware and what do they do? And it's more that, like, Aware is like a custom soccer jersey company based in Germany. And it's like, well, yes, but that's not the primary goal of what the client wants to be known for. So let's do some experiments. Let's maybe look at the on-page template. Let's maybe tweak with testing whether we can be able to have further up in the HTML to have custom cycling jerseys as like more of the predominant feature within this. And let's just test what this looks like. And maybe on the PLP pages, maybe we might shift and not have, that they're a German company and there's like the image and like, a little blurb about them. But maybe we put that lower down into the fold and we experiment with that looks like, and we'd be able to tool that. So to answer your question, the how is really so minute in the amount of experiments and hypotheses that we are testing. But I think how we measure that success is we are tracking the frequency of how many times that a brand appears relevant to the targeted prompts within their LLM. And we've developed this tool. Again, it's super free. It's AI rank. You can be able to use this. Go find Dan's posts and click away and set them up. I think you get like 10 entity associations with your brands, just off the bat. And you can test this over time and see what this looks like. And do experiments of your own, like test like the placement, the sequencing of the words in the way that they are written. Do measure the consistency, measure the prominence, and look at the associations that it's pulling and see whether this is impactful and effective. And I know that Lily Ray is even doing experiments and testing this within her her own very well known brand at the moment. And she's getting some really, really fascinating results as well. So go check out Lily Ray and her tweets and what she's doing over there as well. But again, a lot of this is really, really interesting in the way that we're doing these experiments and wanting to pull them in and being very, very hyper-specific on what we're wanting to test and wanting to track, the output of this and how this is hopefully having more of like an LLM-driven product discovery and recommendation. That's really what we're really trying to get out at the end of the day.
If an SEO is struggling for time, what should they stop doing right now so they can spend more time doing what you suggest in 2025?
I think SEOs should really stop manually analyzing massive amounts of keyword data that is solely focusing on traditional rank tracking. I've been saying this for a very long time, and I think it's even more prevalent now in 2025 with the rise of LLMs and semantic search. And it really does require that shift to understanding the broader context of which a brand exists and how these AI agents are perceiving and representing that brand. So I think this really requires like a lot more of a tooling and leveraging these insights to maybe make some new frameworks and some new testing and new experiments to be able to look at this rather than relying on keyword-centric approaches. And I think that's been true for many, many, many years now.
Nik Ranger is the Senior Technical SEO Consultant at Dejan Marketing, and you can find her over at dejan.ai. Nik, thanks so much for adding your additional insight to SEO in 2025.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure.
I've been your host, David Bain, and you've been listening to SEO in 2025 Additional Insights, a Majestic series that complements the original podcast, video series, and book. Find out more at SEOin2025.com.